All right, good morning, everyone. How are we all doing today? Having a good weekend? Very well. Did we have anyone show up at the Garden Fest show this past weekend? Very good. All right. Yeah, it was a great show. Unfortunately, we got rained out on Sunday, but thank you all for coming, whoever did, of course. So we always like to see a lot of our Vero and Sebastian people down there at the show. So, all right. Today, of course, we're just going to go over interior plant care. So I'm sure many of us have tried and failed with interior plants. I know myself, I've failed with many, and that's how we learn what not to do and what to do to keep the plants healthy and alive. So today will just be kind of an overview of the most crucial things that we need to focus on for keeping plants alive inside the house and in and around, but mainly just your interior foliage plants. I'm going to go over kind of interior care, also exterior care if you're wanting to put them out in the ground or around the porch or patio. So I'll just kind of start off with introducing myself. I'm the assistant manager here at Busy Bee. My name is Ben. I've been taking care of interior plants myself and in the business for many years. So all this information I have for you is throughout years of experience and just basically research. I have not gone to school for this, but just like any of us, we can do all the research that we need for certain items or care for certain interior, exterior plants, of course. So I basically just made an overview throughout the years of my experience with this. So we'll start off with letting you know that basically any or all types of plants can be trained to be an interior house plant over time. Even some landscape items, as in hibiscus itself, or a few other items as well. If you have good experience with the care needs of these items, then you can actually get them to work inside the house, maybe certain amounts of time, usually not long periods for semi-landscaping plants like hibiscus itself, but as in, a few weeks at a time if you're having a party or if you're having guests over, it's really good to get established on how to care for them, to keep them happy for that purpose. So that being said, we'll start out with just kind of areas to grow. I'm just going to kind of go over a few key points today. And one of the key points, of course, is areas to grow inside the house or outside the house. So we'll kind of start off with that. For indoor care, I would have to say, of course, is the most difficult to keep plants alive and to keep them happy and healthy. So that is the most important or crucial point we're going to go over today is basically inside the house. So the main points you have to worry for or think about when you're keeping your plants inside the house is lighting, watering, and air or wind, I would say, and humidity. So interior, we have all, of course, AC units. AC units dry out your house, dry out the air. So that is a number one dead giveaway that your plants are going to decline in health inside the house. The AC dries out the air on purpose, of course. It's just like a dehumidifier in a sense and sucks out all the humidity and moisture out of the air for us, of course, so we don't have a humid house. And basically environment that'll grow fungus or mold. What that does is takes away a lot of the available nutrients in the air for your plants. So one thing you want to do is definitely get a humidifier or ensure that your plants are not under the AC vent, which blows out that cold, dry air. So there's a lot of types of plants that are very touchy with this and a few that are not that can actually handle that. So I'll just mention right now, you all have a chart on the back of your packet. Okay, this chart has many types of plants here, mostly interior foliage items. And this will give you a lot of information on these plants and the needs and care of them. It'll also tell a little bit about the humidity and if it needs a humidifier or not. If you do not need a humidifier on that column and it says no, that type of plant will be pretty well established for a dry environment if that's the case, under your AC vent or in that type of area of the house. Okay, so just keep that in mind as well. Lighting and watering are the most crucial for interior plants, absolutely. If we flip to the third page in, I believe, I have a diagram of lighting. All right, that diagram shows you the best 4 choices of lighting for the house, of course. All right, we start off from direct, bright indirect, medium, and low. Now, again, if you refer to your chart with certain types of plants, it'll tell you which plants work in which environment best. This is for interior, of course. Direct means that the sun is actually hitting the plant through the window or through the door, wherever it may be. Bright and direct means it's just right outside where that direct light is, so it still gets a high amount of light, but not direct sunlight. Medium is, of course, a little bit farther away from that, bright and direct, and then the lowest light is going to be your lowest areas in the house. And those are going to be the most difficult. So referring back to the chart, it will let you know which plants are best for that low light, which is only going to be a few numbers of items. So I'll mention right now, just jumping to that, there are some plants that I refer to as plants of steel. These are going to be your lowest light plants and lowest amount of water plants as well. I didn't include this in the chart, the plants of steel, but if you want to make a notation, I can call them out for you on the chart there. Just so you all know, these are the plants that I stick by for the easiest conditions for starters. If you're starting out with new to growing plants indoors, these are the number one plants that you want to go with, just so you know, which is going to be Aglaonema. Aglaonema is a number one for inside, very low care, very low light, very low water. Sansevieria is another one, or mother-in-law tongue. I'm sure we're all accustomed to that. I'll show you really quick here. All right, we have some Aglaonemas. It's a very nice, colorful foliage type plant. All right, we have a few here. Sansevierias are the mother-in-law tongue. There's many different varieties of these as well. We have ponytail palm, is a very easy care indoor, inside in the house plant. All right, Dracaenas, there's many different varieties of these as well. And then we get to ZZ plant, another very easy interior care plant. And last but not least is cast iron, the ugliest of them all, of course. It's not that showy or pretty, but it is very easy to care for. So I always recommend sticking with one of these if you're a starter, if this is new to you, because this is going to be your easiest care plant. It's going to definitely be the most forgiving. So these items are your lowest water, lowest light, and lowest amount of fertilizer needed as well. So we carry these all the time. We have them in stock, and we try to, when you're here as a normal customer, let you know that these are your number one plants for interior if you're trying to go for something inside the house, of course, okay? As we move along and get on to the other varieties of plants, it definitely goes up in care and fertilizer, watering, light, and everything there as well. So just keep that in mind if you're new to this and you're starting out. Those are your best ones to choose from. All right, once you get into some other things like palms, it's a lot harder care, and other things like philodendrons or so. So we'll move along from there. Lighting is definitely a very important, crucial part of keeping plants alive in the house. So whenever you have questions or you're inquiring about what plant to put where, I can let you know that many of our employees here at Busy Bee are knowledgeable and very experienced in how to take care of what's best to use where. So, all righty. And we will jump now into the next area, which is porch and patio. Okay, porch and patio is the most common, I would say, for us to put our interior plants. A lot of us like to keep them on the porch patio for good looks when we have friends and family over, keeping the pool area nice and beautiful and definitely full of life. So porch and patio is your number one place to keep all your interior plants because they are outside in that humidity, wind, actual sunlight. They are in the weather with the nature where they're supposed to be. So I'll mention this like I do to every customer that I deal with, is that all plants come from the earth. They come from a different part of the world, and that's where they thrive. So they will not thrive inside the house. They will not thrive out in the porch or patio the best because the fact that they are meant to be planted in ground, of course. So just keeping that in mind, that does mean that the porch patio is a better area than in the house, of course. It's going to be less care, and it's going to be less work on you to keep them happy. So the only things I'd have to say to worry about or watch out for is now you're bringing your plant outside, of course. It is in the wind and weather. And when you have a lot more wind and you have a lot more breeze, your plants dry out a lot faster. So you have to keep in mind the difference in watering from interior and exterior is very, there's a big gap between the difference there. So interior plants honestly dry out very slow. Even though they're in the AC and the AC dries out the air, it does not dry out the pot. So just keep in mind your watering cycles are going to be very different from interior to exterior. You're probably going to be taking care of the watering, I would say at least every 1 to 4 days in the porch than you would be interior, which is going to be every 5 to 7 days. So there's definitely a little bit back and forth that makes it easier for you or not, but creating a routine is the most important thing, I believe, for interior and exterior foliage type plants. You want to create a routine for watering and also for fertilizing. Fertilizing is different, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So watering is definitely the most crucial for your routines. Once you get to a cycle, you'll notice that your plant dries out just about the same every time you water it as long as you use the same amount of water. One thing that we, I think, differentiate between plants and between interior, exterior is how much we water certain things. I've noticed when most individuals, when they get a house plant, they think less water is better. So if you're just watering it about a cup here and there, or a tall glass of water, or a half gallon, or this or that, what you really want to focus on inside the house is soaking the plant down very heavily and watering it less amount of times. So you have less intervals of watering, but you're watering heavier in those intervals. It's much better for the plant because now you're soaking the entire root ball of the plant. And this is the most common thing that I see with interior plants degrading over time. So just keep in mind that when you only use a glass of water or so, that is just basically covering the surface roots and not really soaking down the entire part of the root ball. So creating a routine is very crucial. Getting that routine down is very helpful for yourself. So I always mention, as you're growing your interior plants, keep what you know to be heavy watering or light watering on your chart here in the same areas. In my interior plants, I group together my aglaonemas. I group together my Dieffenbachias, group together my Dracaenas, because I know that they need the same amount of water and the same amount of care. So that way you can always keep your humidifier, if you have one or if you purchase one, near the plants that will need the humidifier more or less than others. So if you look at the chart, aglaonemas do not really need a humidifier. So you're going to want to keep that towards other items if you're, keeping them in your house, as in philodendrons, ivies, ficuses, even the hibiscus. They're definitely going to need humidity because they grow outside in the landscape, so they definitely need humidity. So grouping your plants and getting in a routine are very crucial in plant care inside the house, alrighty? I don't want to go too deep into detail with everything and throw a lot at you, of course, but just kind of overview a few of the main things that I know is over time you'll even see yourself is very crucial to keep in your mind for knowledge, of course. Okay, so porch patio, getting back to that, is a very good spot to keep these interior plants just because they're outside and they're out of that dry AC. Upping the water is definitely going to be needed, and then watching for pests is going to be very crucial as well. One of the main reasons is because pests love to hang out in damp, wet areas, dark, damp, wet areas. So most of us know in the corners of our porch patios or pool areas, it usually stays a little bit shaded and damp, especially if we have our overhang or our basically the porch area, the roof for the overhang. So pests love hanging out in those areas, and that's where you will be watching out for, is if you're keeping certain things, low-light things in low-light corners of porch patio areas, watch out for pests. But we'll go over a little bit of prevention later on as well. So next area is outdoors and garden, which is the #1 spot to put all of your interior foliage or any of these plants as well, just because that is where they naturally come from. Maybe not this part of the world, but definitely we are in the subtropics, and most of these are tropical foliage. So they will do the best, they will thrive the best outside in a semi-shaded environment. Again, going back to the chart, it will let you know all types of what sun is needed, if it's salt tolerant or not, what type of plant it is, whether it's terrestrial or epiphytic. And just a quick overview of that. Terrestrial is growing in soil, growing in the ground. Epiphytic is just like an orchid, a plant that puts out aerial roots and can grow in oxygen, not just soil. So that right there is just on the chart. It says TEP, and that'll let you know if it's terrestrial, epiphytic, or parasitic. And epiphytic plants, of course, since they are aerial root plants, they soak up nutrients through the air. They soak up water through the air. So that is absolutely going to need a humidifier. And you'll see that referred back on the chart as well. So this is definitely your best friend right here. Whenever you're purchasing new plants, whenever you're getting anything, most likely I will have the variety on here. This covers mainly most of your cultivated plants and sold plants that you see at box stores, that you see at nurseries like ours. So this will cover most to all of what plants that you are trying to grow in or outside the house. So always refer back to this, and it'll give you any information that you need. All right? So back to it, of course, outdoors is the number one place to grow just because they can get the rainwater, which is always best for your plants, okay? They can get the sunlight through the tree, which is always best for your plants, and they can now get nutrients through the ground, nutrients through the air, and, of course, through anything breaking down, as in plant material, broken down plant material, leaf material, all that stuff is good for plants. That's how they naturally grow. That's how we want them to thrive. All right, so we'll move along to the next grouping here, which is humidifier and fan. This is just basically, now we're going to be talking about just everything inside the house. I wanted to just overview. Of course, we can grow them anywhere we want to grow them, but we need to know the care. So those are your best places and the information for it. But we'll hop on to humidifier fan. This is all interior information, all right? So again, going back to terrestrial, epiphytic, parasitic, all of your aerial roots, as in orchids, philodendrons, anthuriums, anything that you get with aerial roots will need a humidifier. Anything that is like a ficus tree or a monstera, which is an epiphyte, anything like a fern, ivies, anything that you see here that's non-flowering or that will be planted outside for the most part, like a hibiscus, will need the humidifier. It is very crucial, and they're fairly inexpensive at the right size. I mean, they sell, you can get them at stores like Michael's or so, or different stores. Sorry, not Michael's, Bed Bath & Beyond or other places. Small humidifiers, desktop size. And believe me, I have just one, and it fills 2 rooms with humidity on the highest setting. So you do not have to worry about going crazy. Just get something small if you're looking to keep these plants happy and healthy inside the house. It's very easy to care for. Usually a humidifier runs for about 2 days, and then you need to refill it. So just that one item will step up your ability to keep certain plants inside the house for long periods of time, okay? Fans are also very crucial because of air circulation. So it's very stagnant in the house other than our AC unit, which blows out the dry air. So one of the things that I always say is, as I mentioned, grouping your plants together correctly for watering, moisture, sun, everything like that, you can also group them together correctly for your humidity and keep that fan next to them as well. It spreads out that humidity from the humidifier tenfold throughout the room and gets it on every plant for you, so all of your plants are happy and getting humidity and moisture through the air. So I always keep my fan next to the humidifier and blowing directly towards certain plants. Number one, like I mentioned, it gives those plants extra humidity. And number two, they always want to be basically feeling like they're outside, recreating nature, recreating outdoors. So as long as you have fans blowing on them, for particular plants, you always keep them a lot happier and a lot more, I would say, accustomed to being inside, tricking them basically, thinking that they're outside. Now they have humidity, they have sunlight. If you're putting them near a window, they have wind. They're basically feeling like they're outside. So it's much better for the plant health to have humidity and to have wind by a fan, okay? So that's, to me, is one of the most important things, too, for certain varieties. And yeah, when you get into growing different plants and you start to get different variety of items, unfortunately, it's going to be different care for every item. So honestly, getting used to that particular variety is a little bit important as well. I feel like you'll all individually become accustomed to certain varieties of plants, and they'll be your favorite item to keep in the house. So for me, aglaonemas are number one. And again, that's what I was showing you over here, these very colorful foliage plants. They don't really bloom too often. Actually, it looks like this one's pushing out a bloom, and they're not really showy at all. They're mainly just foliage. But these plants are very easy to care for. My number one go-to plant, just because it's also very gorgeous foliage as well. But these are, as I mentioned before, very low water, very low light, very low care, and they don't need to be fertilized quite often. So this is just such a number one plant for me, and that's what I've come accustomed to myself to keep in the house. So I have about, I would say right now, 60 or 70 aglaonemas inside the house set apart. So I'm sorry, yes, all these plants, and just to let you know and let you all know, if we could hold questions towards the end, we'll definitely take questions, all the questions at the end. If you need to write it down, there's space on here, you can write it down and save it. We'll answer all questions at the end, alrighty, and take care of everybody. But yes, all these plants absolutely can go in the ground, and like I mentioned, they will thrive better in the ground. Getting into that, though, there's one thing that I'll, in a few minutes we'll go over, which is soil, because every type of variety of plant needs different soil as well. So it's very crucial if you're planting any of these foliage type plants in the ground, not as much with certain things, and I'll go over it, like ficus trees or hibiscus or a few other things aren't as crucial. But things like aglaonemas, calatheas, philodendrons, pothos, they do need a certain type of soil in the ground, and we will go over that. That's the most crucial thing for planting outside is, yes, you do need to spend a little bit extra in the beginning of planting, but in the long run, your plants will do so much better, believe me. I've learned this through experience. We have heavy, heavy, dense soil here in Florida, and it does not accommodate what they need for their roots. But we will go over that. All right. I just want to, since lighting is next, I just want to jump back on one thing about lighting, of course, which I did not mention. We have our light diagram here for natural lighting. Natural lighting is number one for your plants. But if you do want to grow and you do not have a good natural lighting in the house, which I know I do not, I have almost like a Florida Cracker home, and I have those old Florida Cracker windows as well. I don't have very well lighting inside the house. What you want to do is grow lights. They're pretty inexpensive as well. They're very powerful. They're high lumen. And you'll be able to actually grow things now in certain areas of the house that you were not before. So they're inexpensive either at your box stores like Home Depot or Lowe's, or you can get them online for even cheaper, and that would be my recommendation is online. They're very cheap, and you usually get like a 6-pack for 20 or 30 bucks. So lighting is very important for certain varieties of plants, as in not your plants of steel. So we go back to ZZ, aglaonema, and a few others. You don't have to be so crucial about those, but there are many that will need grow lights if you do not have ample lighting inside the house. So just keep that in mind. Setting them up correctly is going to be very helpful for the growth. They need the lighting, they need the water to grow correctly. So, all right, other than that, you will just have a deteriorating plant inside the house. You can always bring anything inside for up to a week without light or correct water, but from there on, it will start to deteriorate. So, okay. We'll move on to, let's see what we have next. Move on to watering now, which is the number one, most crucial. This is the most important. Watering is absolutely the most important because overwatering is going to be your number one for killing a plant the fastest. Lighting will kill a plant over time if you don't have correct lighting, but it'll slowly deteriorate and it'll show you signs. The leaves will discolor and it'll orange out or brown out the leaves, and it'll show you that it's not happy. You'll get either burn marks at the ends of the leaves or you'll get orange or brown. But with watering, you can have an issue arise within just a few days. So if you overwater some of these plants, which plants of steel are number one. Now, I named them plants of steel because of the fact that you do not have to water too often. So that is a good thing to remember with those plants, to not overwater them, to not soak them, to not let them sit in water with your saucer as well. Because, of course, most of these plants will be having a saucer under them inside the house so we don't get water on the floor or whatnot. Well, that saucer does hold water for a few days' time, or at least a day. And if it's these certain plants that do not need a lot of watering, which refer back to your chart, and it'll let you know, you can easily build root rot. And root rot happens very fast. It can happen overnight. So just so you know, if we've all killed a plant before, it's most likely because of overwatering or sitting wet for too long. All right, that is the number one reason that plants die inside the house. So it is the number one reason to remember that you do not want to overwater these plants, and refer back to your chart or do a little bit of research before you just water to water, okay? There's a lot of plants that will need extra water, of course, too, like ficus trees and certain other things, but that's all going to be in your chart. So number one, just remember, do not overwater your plants. 90% of the time, you're going to want to let these plants inside the house completely dry out before watering again. And that's where you build your routine for a watering cycle, okay? So now you know not to overwater, you know not to just soak it down because it's been 2 days. No, you let the plant dry out so it is in its own terms with water, of course, okay? It's letting you know when it needs it, when it's fully dry. A lot of the times with certain things, I will actually let them start to droop inside the house before I water them. It's not a problem for plants to droop for a day or so and to show signs of needing water and then filling them back up. A lot of these plants will not burn or will not drop leaves if they just droop for a day. So that will be a dead giveaway. It's time to rewater the plant. And after a few times, you can now build your routine watering cycle, all right? So just keep that in mind, that watering is absolutely the most important thing to not overdo, all right? Again, grouping similar plants is always helpful. So knowing which plants need more and need less. And then you can do your watering cycles, you know, one group of plants on a Tuesday, one group of plants on a Wednesday every week or every other week or so. All right, that's definitely the easiest way to accumulate all of this information and to get used to keeping your plants happy and healthy. Certain plants, and I'll just go over this quickly, are very touchy with certain types of water. Now, who here has city water out of all of us, I would say? I know I have well water. I don't have city water. And just so you know, well water is much better for your plants. All right? There's a lot of chemicals in city water. There's a lot of chemicals they add to kill certain bacteria and viruses and whatnot that's in the water, like chlorine, chloramine, bromine, and whatnot. This can burn your plants. Usually on the exterior of the leaves is the sign, but it can definitely burn a good few of plants that we carry. So Calathea and Alocasia are going to be your number one. I'll just throw that out right now because it's not too many that will show signs of this chemical burn. This is a Calathea right here, all right? It's called a Stromanthe. We have another Calathea up here. It's Calathea peacock. This is the most common, one of the most common varieties you will see. But Calatheas are wonderful plants. They're absolutely gorgeous. We would love to carry them in the house or keep them in the porch or patio. I love Calatheas myself, but they are one of the most difficult to get used to because of things like the chemicals in the water, the right amount of sun, and they do not like the dry air with the AC. So you will get used to these items, of course, if you're interested in them. But it's all in the chart as well, and that lets you know right in the chart, Calatheas and certain others like Alocasias that are very touchy with chemicals in the water, too much or too little sun, and too much dry air, not enough humidity. So definitely get accustomed to that over time. But I would not deter you away from purchasing them or keeping them in the house. Just get a little bit used to the care for them, of course, all right? Just like all of us, we need correct amount of water and the right type of water. So, all right. We will now go into pest control. Just a quick overview. I don't want to go too crazy about this, but because to me, the best thing is prevention. I know that just like our own health, it's very tough to stay on prevention. You know, we have to eat the right things to stay healthy. We have to take the right vitamins and minerals to stay healthy. But a lot of us, you know, fall off the wagon with that and, of course, become very unhealthy in what we eat and what we ingest. But with pests, with plants, it's the same with keeping pests away. You want to just do prevention to keep pests away inside the house or the porch or patio. Normally out in the yard, if you're planting out in the garden like aglaonemas, as you asked, it's much less to worry about with pests. I mean, they come and go from time to time, as you will see probably on your landscape plants at home. They come and go from time to time, usually different parts of the year. So don't worry too much about that. That you'll just take your normal steps of applying pesticide or so, certain ones. But interior, definitely prevention is number one to help out with keeping pests away. So I always recommend this product. I use it myself all the time. It is cheap. It is $8.99 for the bottle. It'll last you quite a while. This is a granular insecticide systemic. So what it does is it gets up in the vascular system of the plant, and it protects it for a certain amount of time. This particular one only lasts about a month to 2 months, okay? So it doesn't last very long, but you can apply it as often as you want. It's not going to hurt the plant in the right usage of the right amount, of course, according to the chart. The name is High Yield Systemic Insect Granules, okay? We always have this on the shelves. We always carry this, of course, unless we sell out and we're waiting for a new stock. But it is your number one for keeping pests away from the plants and controlling a pest infestation, all righty? I always do this about once a month or to twice a month, depending on the plant, and apply it with water, all right? You can do it granules in the pot, perfectly fine, but it does work better if you mix it with your watering can, let it dilute for about an hour, and then water the plant with that. Let it sit in the saucer so the plant soaks up the rest of the chemical, okay? And this will keep it protected for about a month to 2 months. You don't have to do it every 2 months and go crazy, but maybe 4 times a year, every quarter, would be helpful, just to keep off certain things. We get whitefly, scale, thrips, mealybug, aphids, not as much inside the house, but those 4 original are usually the most. Spider mites here and there as well. Some of these can be very difficult to take care of. If you have an issue, I say jump to the next item, which is tree and shrub drench. All right, I'll just quickly go over infestations. If you are seeing an infestation on a plant inside the house, immediately pull it outside because you do not want to, 1, infest your other plants, and 2, you do not want, of course, the plant to die because of too much of an infestation. So jumping right on it is definitely the number one thing to do. I always recommend pulling that plant outside under an oak tree or under a tree where it gets dapple light through a tree or something like that, so it still has some direct sun. Number 2, cut off as much leaves as you can that are fully infested with the pest. And number 3, you're going to want to soak it down with the tree and shrub drench, according to the chart on the back. This is the same as the granule in a sense, except it's much more potent and it will last up to 6 months. This will take care of any infestation that you have as long as you're doing the right steps to do so. You don't just want to pour it inside the house, leave it where it's at, where it got infested, and expect it to take care of itself. You definitely have to be proactive and do a little bit extra work and take care of it. If it doesn't go away after a few months after the application of this, 1, either get rid of the plant, or 2, you'll have to definitely repot it and cut off almost all the foliage, refertilize, and let it grow outside for a few months until it fills back out. At that point, we normally just kind of toss it away and get a new plant, of course. It's a little bit extra work, all right? There's a few other products you can use, but that is the number 1, all righty? So we'll jump really quick because I want to just, keep on time to fertilizing. So that is, of course, taking care of pests, but fertilizing, number 1, is another prevention of pests because just like us, if we keep our nutrient levels high, if we keep our immune system high, we fight off pests, disease, virus, all that as well. Well, it's the same with plants. They have an immune system just like us. It's a very different immune system, but it works very similar, okay? So if their nutrient levels are very high, kept high with fertilization, then you will definitely, I believe this is a spray over here, then you will definitely be able to prevent a pest infestation as well as keeping the granules in there. So my number 1 to go to is fish emulsion. It does not smell well. It does not, definitely does not smell well inside the house if you use it in the house. So this isn't good for the house, I would say, for most people. I'm used to it. Definitely makes the house smell like fish for a few days. But it is number 1 for feeding your plants. It has all the right amount of nitrogen, iron, and all sorts of things for them. It keeps them very healthy, and it does not burn. You can overdo it with this. You could pour this directly in the pot, and it will not burn the plant. There are certain items that will burn your plant, like Miracle-Gro. I did mention in the packet, and you will see, I am not a fan of Miracle-Gro. I will not recommend that ever, but if it's something that you use and you have at home, definitely keep using it. I just recommend using a half to what they say to use because it can easily burn your plants, okay, if you overdo it. All right, but Miracle-Gro will work if that's what you want to use. This is a great product here that we carry. It's called Vitamix. It's basically a mixture of root stimulator and a product called Super Thrive. And these 2 products mixed together basically takes care of all the vitamin and mineral needs that your plant needs to keep to stay happy and to stay full and colorful and rich. So this is a great product for inside the house. You don't need to use too much every time you water. You can use it every time you water as well. It's not going to burn your plants as well. But I would suggest to fertilize at least once a month, okay? Liquid fertilizer once a month is a great way to keep your plants prevented from pests and to keep them at their highest nutrient levels so they are happy, full, colorful, and keeping pests away. All righty? We're getting towards the last bit of it here. All right? I just kind of want to go over the soil types. All right? Soil types as well. Because this is probably something that I would say is not the most crucial, of course, for your plants, but it's something that if you're okay with going a little bit, doing a little bit of an extra steps or extra work to taking care of the right ones in the house or in the porch or patio or especially in the ground. It's more crucial for in the ground than in pots, I would say, because most soil, other than if you're buying topsoil or heavy cow manure compost, of course, we all know we don't want to use that in pots. Using potting mix, which I have up here, our green bag, is quite all right to use for basically all of your plants up here that you see. But there are some that will thrive better if you do the right mixture of soil, okay? So we have 3 different soil mixtures here that I usually stick with. All right, I'll go over them very quick here. We have general mix, which again is basically the potting mixture, but a few additional things in there just to keep things a little bit happier. And also water drainage as well is very good for it. So general mixture is going to be consisting of 60% potting mix, 20% pine fines, or perlite vermiculite. Those 3 items work fairly similar. They're basically like a drainage product, but holds a little bit of extra moisture for the plant, so the roots can basically break into that and suck the moisture out of. They have a good surface area which holds moisture, but they are basically chunks in the soil which allows the heavy amounts of water to flow right through. So if you're using something like topsoil or cow manure compost, it's going to be very dense and too dense for it. So even if you use that because it's what you have in the house, make sure you're adding some of this product in to allow some aeration, to allow some drainage, alrighty, and a little bit of water retention in the correct way. Water retention is different when you go from a heavy soil mix to a light soil mix with water retaining product. When it's a heavy soil mix, the entire soil is drenched, dense, and heavy. That is going to create root rot. When you have the right soil mixture, you have product in there, like I said, that is very dense in surface area and will just allow the roots to suck out what they need. All right? So the general potting mix is great for all of these plants, great for interior, porch, or anything like that, and is going to be your number 1 for planting in the ground, too, for these items. So, ma'am, like you had asked before about the aglaonemas, the general mix is what you'd want to use for planting them in the ground if you were going to do so, okay? We have a planting sheet that we carry at the register, and that you can go over the same thing. It tells you how to plant things correctly in ground. So just use that sheet there. It'll tell you what to do for planting, and then use your general mix and use that for the soil mixture you're using in the ground. You never really want to add sand to, or the original sand that was there, the existing, to it. If you do just a small amount, you really want to almost go the full amount of the hole that you dig out with this general mixture, okay? Because it's going to allow the plant to fill out with the root system very heavily in what you put in, and now it's very established to break into that dense sandy soil, okay? So I've planted many things in the ground, and I've let many die, of course, because I was not using the right mixture, and found out this is what you need to do for these certain plants. Does this apply to landscape plants, what we normally sell here, what we normally put outside? No. You can absolutely use what you normally do as in cow manure compost, organic peat, or things like that, mushroom compost. But just remember, anything like this, ficus, aglaonema, aralias, ivies, anything like that, need that general soil mixture, okay? A roid mixture is going to be your epiphytic plants. This is a mixture of orchids, philodendrons, anthuriums, anything that has a aerial root, all right? This will consist of 40% bark. So we have orchid bark that we sell here. We do carry multiple types, but I suggest the Orchiata. It lasts a long time, 7 to 8 years, where our normal bark that we carry from Better Grow only lasts about 3 years, I believe. So if you're doing orchids, it is a great product to use, but any aroids, they will need that bark in there for allowing a lot of aeration and water drainage, all right? So 40% bark mix, we have 20% cocoa core, which if no one's familiar with cocoa core, it is ground up cocoa husk, all right? We carry that as well in the store. That is going to be 10% of the Pine Fines perlite or vermiculite, 10% potting mix, and 10% worm castings. The charcoal is basically a suggestion. I use charcoal because it's got a lot of surface area for holding water and nutrients, all right? Not only does bark, perlite, and vermiculite and charcoal hold water, it also holds fertilizer when you use it. So now that fertilizer can release for the roots as well. All right, when we get into our special mix, this is for those touchy plants, the calatheas, the alocasias, a few others like that. What else do we have here? Begonias, because begonias are tuberous plants. They do not like sitting wet for a long time. I'm sure some of us have killed begonias. All right, African violets, another tuber. Pothos, not so much, but Sansevieria is another one that can rot easily with too much water. So remember these guys here that we have on the list, it wants the special mix. Now the special mix mainly consists of cocoa coir. It's 50% cocoa coir, 20% peat moss, 10% worm castings, 10% vermiculite, and of course a suggestion of 10% charcoal. Charcoal works very well. I would suggest that you can have a fire pit and just pull out the ash, the chunks of burnt charcoal. That is called biochar. It is very good for plants. We don't use it quite often, and it's not really mentioned that often at stores, but it is wonderful for plants. They thrive with biochar in the mixture, okay? Especially indoors, all righty? So if you go to your chart, it will tell you which plants require which soil mixture as well. So this chart is your basically your gold sheet here. It gives you all the information, okay, on every single type of plant. So I definitely use this still to the day because it's hard to remember through all the different varieties of plants that we like to carry in the house, how to care for each one, all righty? So I believe that is mainly what I wanted to go over for today. I didn't want to keep it too long and keep you guys here too long. Just an overview of everything that is very crucial and important, of course, inside the house and outside the house. And we can spend time to go over questions now. Anything that you guys are wondering about, worrying about, if I didn't cover, if you have any questions about what plants we have out here or the product, we can go over all that right now. All righty?